energy system is typically a sector which looks at long-term investments and everything. We are 2012, so there's a general agreement that we need to look beyond 2020.
We are basically now at a crossroad between the previous binding targets, which are meant to be phased out by 2020, I mean to be reached by 2020. And so the big question now is what's coming next?
Should we go quicker on renewables? Should we go quicker on gas to renewables? Should we go quicker on CCS?
Is it actually a dream to be basing our energy system on more renewables, or is it indeed a credible pathway to go?
Gas does have a role to play in the short, medium and even in the long run to help our economy and energy sector to decarbonize.
There is still a strong case to be made for fossil fuels to remain at the core of the energy solutions for Europe, and I see a really strong partnership to be established between renewables and fossil fuels.
The interesting thing about gas is that it's a necessary transitionary fuel in all these three sectors, but it's difficult to provide its role in the long term, really. Gas is still a fossil fuel, is emitting less than coal, but still a high carbon source. Gas has many advantages when it comes to price, when it comes to feasibility and everything, but the fact that there's so much discussion about the role of gas is it because it's a very complex story. We need it in the short term, in the midterm, but we need to be careful about it in the long term.
You will need backup solutions, you will need security of supply from gas to help the viability of the renewables.
Renewables, at least in the near future, I mean for the coming decades, cannot work completely isolated from the use of fossil fuels. You have a number of physical limits and obstacles to a wider use of renewables, and the most obvious one being intermittency. The key question behind it is what happens when there is no sun or when there is no wind.
We won't get all our energy from solar panels and from wind and from all the rest like that in 5 or 10 years from now.
If we talk about a renewables dominant, let's say, or dominated power sector, that will of course bring some new challenges. It's another type of energy system which is more flexible, which is more variable, and that of course needs to be balanced by some smart backup, some smart grids, and some demand response there.
Lots of R&D has to be think of, a lot of investment has to be done.
We need to reduce coal. We know we have to shift away from coal. Not only Europe is doing that, also the US is doing that, for example. They have capped coal. Also China is doing that. Against common belief, these countries are actually doing a lot against CO2 emissions, and the question is where Europe is actually still the proclaimed leader, as it likes to say from itself.